Hi, everyone. Welcome to Breakthrough, a Dale Carnegie podcast, where our heart and mission for the podcast is really to inspire and encourage the next generation of leaders to take command of their future, to step into their success. We've had so many great guests on the podcast, and here today we have yet another one who I actually had the honor of meeting through Mary Hemphill, who was on our first season of the podcast. So it's amazing the connections that this brings. Today, we have the wonderful Yasmeen Robbins. She has spent 13 years in public education. Yasmeen spent 8 years as a classroom teacher and then 4 years as an instructional coach, actually, and 3 years as an assistant principal in North Carolina. So she moved through everything in education. She currently serves as an instructional review coach for the North Carolina Department of Instruction. She was selected for 40 under 40 because of her work with her nonprofit, Rebrand North Carolina Education. Man, she does it all. She is the founder of Principal Pipeline, which I can't wait to get into. It's a digital platform, for those that don't know, that provides a collaborative structure for school leaders. And for the past 2 years, just to get you up to date, she has been researching edupreneurship and educators reimagining the future and educational careers. So we're also going to dive into that. So many great topics to speak through in just short amount of time. But thank you, Yasmeen, for joining us today. And if you would just share a little bit about your heart currently in the space that you're in, a little background.
Sure. One, Faye, thank you for having me. I appreciate, being able to have this conversation with you and the work that you're doing as well, because it's big work, it's needed work. And, I definitely admire so much of that in you. Right now, the space that I'm in, I'm completing my doctorate at UNCW. So I'm doing a lot of research. So I'm in the last phase of coursework moving into my dissertation, but I've always known what my dissertation was going to be. And I'm really researching and digging through edupreneurship and trying to determine what this research is going to look like around there, because it's such a up and coming field right now. Granted, it's been around for some time and people have been doing it for some time, but it's becoming coming into the forefront. And I think educators are seeing the possibilities of becoming an edupreneur. So I'm excited to learn more about that and to really communicate the work that other edupreneurs are doing, because I really want to capture some stories, right? I want to capture some stories, and also want to allow or build a platform to allow educators to feel like if they have the desire to do that it's a possibility and it's good work.
You're really heading the way in this. In this area, you are the first person that I'm really hearing about paving the way in this field. And so I'm so excited just to dig into this a little more. For those that are like, what does that really look like? What are some examples of what an edupreneur could be doing? Can you zone in on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. I can recall when I was an instructional coach. I mean, there's so many different levels to it. You know what I'm saying? I recall when I was an instructional coach, I had a teacher, a phenomenal teacher that I worked with. And she taught, I want to say second grade at that time. And she was working with TPT, and she was building resources. At that time, it wasn't digital. A lot of things were printable resources for teachers to use. TPT was huge back then. TPT is still huge back then. But she was making a good chunk of income, just doing that work. So that was a form of edupreneurship that I didn't necessarily think of during that time, but it was happening, right? It was definitely happening. And then you have, on a larger scale, you have educational leaders who were in the field, right? They were principals, they were teachers, someone like George Kuros or Dr. Hemphill. They were in the field, they were doing the work, and they found a gap in the work, right? They found a gap and they helped to fill that gap, whether it's building the capacity of school leaders or providing professional development around certain areas in education. And then that's a form of edupreneurship. So there's such a huge scale. So there's some teachers who have one foot in, one foot out. So I'm teaching, I'm doing that work, but also on the side, I'm doing edupreneurship. And you have the other ones who have completely exited, and now they're doing it on a larger scale, going across the nation, definitely building the capacity of teachers and school leaders.
Absolutely. Thanks for clarifying that more for listeners that don't know what that is, first off. And how important was it that you had this education background? And how crucial is it for any edupreneur that they are in the school system, maybe for a little bit before branching out to create something? Like, what was it that from your background and experience in education that helped you so much in going this way?
Well, the idea for me in creating the principal pipeline came from, I was in a cohort. I was selected in my county to be a part of a leadership program to become a principal. And being in that program, I was able to kind of travel around the state to see different aspects of school leadership, really top-notch leaders within North Carolina who were definitely doing some innovative work to address student achievement. And as I was hearing these stories, I'm like, why is there not a way for this story to be communicated to another county who's struggling with that same issue, right? So what I learned as I was a part of that program, that, principals live in a silo, and the information very rarely crosses county lines. And it's necessary. We build collaborative structures for teachers, but it wasn't happening for school leaders. And a lot of school leaders, especially when COVID happened, were struggling, and they weren't sure how to address certain things, whether it's providing students with books or how to help build a virtual schedule to meet the needs of students. So during that time, I said, there has to be another way, right? There has to be another way to allow school leaders to be able to collaborate. So instantly in my head, I'm a techie type person. So I was like, what if they had an app, right? What if they had an app to be able to log on? And one of the things that when you go to any type of conference and you hear principals speak or teachers speak, you want to say, does that school look like my school? What does their school look like? Is what they're doing really going to fit? Because I have kids that are different, right? So I said, what if they were able to log on to this platform to be able to see the demographics of schools that principals were a part of or leading, and then be able to say, okay, if it's working there, then it can also work in my building as well. So
cool.
One of the things I say, you've got to be part of the process, right? You've got to be in education to be able to see the gaps that are happening. And I believe educators are filling gaps all the time, needs all the time that are happening. And a lot of times we don't pay attention to what we're doing because that's just what we do as educators. We find a need, we fill a need, and we make it happen, and we keep the education system rolling. But being able to really actualize that gap and create something to help support it, that's kind of where it comes from. Boots on the ground, honestly. Boots on the ground, being in the building, not being so far removed from the building in the classroom, to be able to understand what are the needs of educators every single day.
What are the needs of educators every single day? That is so, so good. What is it? What I'm curious to know the process of the app and like where it is, like what stage it's in currently. Can you share about that?
Definitely. So this is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It is probably one of the most challenging things, really and truly. So I met with some people and really got some investors, and really helped to develop what we felt like it should look like. I started working with a company in Raleigh, North Carolina called Lithos, and they began to help develop the interface for the platform. So we developed the interface, kind of walked through it. It is definitely it's not completely working app right at this moment, because funding is a thing and educators are not rich. I'm an educator. I'm in the education field and I'm not a rich person. But so we're in the process of looking, I'm in the process of looking for funding to help to develop it fully out so that it becomes a working app. But it's definitely in the testing phase. We've tested it with several educators or several school leaders. We did a lot of groups, letting them to see the process, garnering their feedback, what they felt what should be different, what they felt needed to be added. And the moment as we're completing the groups, the testing groups, they say, when is this coming? When is this coming out? When is this happening? Because I need it right now. So definitely trying to do the work to get it there so that it can be a downloadable app in the Apple Store. But we have our platform. We have the mainframe, the interface of it. So we're on the road. We're building it.
You're building it. It's so cool to see the different stages and just really, I mean, it gives me an even more appreciation for what you're doing, knowing how strenuous of a process this must be and like the challenges that you have to overcome just to build it and make it happen, let alone have people use it, right? And to work through the bugs that come up. And it's such good feedback that you're getting, it sounds like, from educators. And that has to be really encouraging for your
It really is. It really is. Definitely confirms, because we think of things all the time, but you say, is this really a need, or is this a need that I just have, right? Is it just centered around my experiences, or is this going to help to help other educators in their experiences as well? And it really confirmed that, it is needed on a larger scale.
Yeah, totally. What about a breakthrough? Like, what would you say has been a big breakthrough for you with a challenge developing the app, or a challenge as an educator in all the different spaces you've been in? You can even share more than one if you want, but I'm just curious on breakthroughs.
I'm going to tell you, like, the biggest breakthrough is that rejection is a thing, right? Anytime you are building anything, any product, any idea that you're trying to create, you're going to get rejected. And you've got to learn how to deal with the rejection. It doesn't necessarily mean that what you're doing is not of value, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just means it's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Timing is really important. Anytime you're trying to market something or really present something. So I've gone through it. I've definitely pitched the idea, and I'm not done pitching, but I've definitely pitched the idea multiple times to different organizations. And it's definitely been like, yes, I see it, it's great, but we don't really want to fund that. There's too many variables, which I understand. So rejection is a thing, and it doesn't mean that you need to stop. You have to learn to overcome rejection. And if you believe in what you're doing, you believe in the idea, and you believe that it is something that will serve educators, then you keep going, you keep working at it. And that's kind of where I'm at. Another breakthrough that I've had is that school leaders are encountering different obstacles right now, especially after COVID. Just a change in teacher turnover, trying to fulfill classrooms. There's like so many aspects that they're overcoming. And I think the biggest breakthrough with me in doing this app is really getting the input from school leaders to hear the things that they really, really need, right? To hear the support that they need, and then hearing the resources that they need, and how this app can definitely allow them to garner or to get those resources, be able to converse amongst one another to be able to do that.
And that input's got to be so crucial, I'm sure. And going back to that first breakthrough, I think there was so many good nuggets there about rejection, and about you have to have this belief not just in yourself, but in what you're creating in order to push through, like that why behind what you're doing, and seeing that vision, focusing your eyes on where this could land and benefits of how this could serve people, right? Like having that long-term vision will help you get through the tough steps that are right in front of you.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you have to be so disciplined, persevere through
Yes.
that. How do you, if you have an example about, maybe a time where you got rejected and your headspace went to defeat, like, oh, why am I even doing this? Like, is this gonna work? How did you come over that hill and push through to persevere?
I'm be honest with you. I met with this investment company, and they invest into education tools and resources and things like that. And I met with the person, and he's a brilliant person. Met with him and sharing the app, and he looked at me, he said, at the end of the presentation, he goes, I don't know why. He said, why you? That's what he said. Why you? Why should it be you that does this type of work? And in my head, I'm thinking, like, what do you mean, why me? I mean, like, I've been in the education system. I get it, like I get it. And he's like, well, you didn't convey the story to me as why you should be the one. He said, so I can't, he said, go back, retell the story, rebuild it, and then come back to me and present it to me. And so that I know for sure as to why I'm choosing you is the reason that I should go. So at that moment, I was defeated. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was completely defeated. I'm thinking, like, why me? Like, then it had me question, like, why exactly? Why me? Why should I be the one? Why would it not be someone who's on a higher level doing the work, who spoke across, school systems across the nation? Like, why should it be me? But then I had to change my mindset and say, why not me? Right? Why not me? Why could I not be the one? For me, it's not about finances and making a lot of money. It's the belief that I know the struggles that school leaders are facing. And it's the belief that this will actually help to support better education. Because if we're able to get some type of realm for school leaders to begin to collaborate, that's the biggest thing, right? Sharing ideas, collaboration, that is how you move the education system. That is how you grow any type of organization, environment, is the sharing of ideas. So there has to be some place for that. So at that point, it was like, why not me? Even though I felt defeated, I began to change. You got to reframe things, right? You have to take rejection. You've got to reframe it in a way that you use it as a catalyst. You use it to stand upon in order to keep going, instead of using it to weigh you down.
I am just taking notes here. This is so good. Reframe rejection, use it as a catalyst. Why not me? Why not me? I think we each have such a unique value, perspective that we can bring to things, and really building that storytelling element to people. People connect with people. They don't connect with things.
Exactly.
So I mean, man, I'm sure that was tough to hear that guy say that, but it reframed you, and it really had you thinking inward of what unique piece do I bring to the table? Why should he invest in me? And I'm sure, like, just that self-discovery that you had to go into to build that story for him was amazing. So that's so cool. Thanks for sharing that story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
What piece of advice would you give to maybe a Gen Z that's in high school or college, thinking about entrepreneurship, thinking about leadership in a space such as edupreneurship? What piece of advice would you give to a Gen Z like that?
Let me tell you, and I wish, I think this is something I tell myself on a daily basis, Social media is huge. You're going to see things, because Gen Z consumes social media. It's a huge networking piece for them as well. And every day, or let me say, at times you're going to second guess your abilities, right? Because what is being presented seems so much larger and so much bigger beyond your reach. And then you'll second guess whether or not you can actually do that. And I do that to myself quite often. So my biggest thing is take time, right? Take time to tap out of social media, ground yourself. Every now and then, take time to tap out, to ground yourself. And then in doing so, what you need to do is you need to affirm yourself, affirm the work that you're doing, affirm your capabilities where you're not comparing it. Because a lot of times social media allows you to compare. You don't want to compare. You want to affirm. In order to do that, you've got to tap out every now and then. You've got to leave that space. And then you've got to build some time to affirm who you are, what you're doing, and what you can do, right? Because you're going to go through life and it's going to be a struggle because you have big dreams. I've always been a big dreamer. I've always been a big dreamer. And having big dreams comes big questions. Can you do it? Am I the one? Is it possible? I don't see an avenue, because a lot of times you may be in environments where you don't have someone that resembles where you're trying to go. So now you have to build it on yourself.
Wow.
So in order to do that, you've got to tap out from social media every now and then. You've got to affirm who you are. You've got to be secure in who you are. And then you've got to be able to begin to invest in you, to know that what I am trying to do or what I dream to do is not beyond my reach. Even though I don't see a mirror of it, I'm going to build it. I'm going to take what I see and I'm going to actualize it.
Going to actualize it. Man, you said something in there, having big dreams comes with big questions. That's so right. If you stay small, you're not going to have these self-doubts that come up, these big questions that you would if you're chasing something big.
Exactly.
And so if people, hey, it might be a encouraging thing if someone is scared of the next step, right? Because then that means their dreams are big.
Exactly.
And don't compare, confirm. That's so good. It's so easy to compare ourselves. And social media is right there. So tapping out.
Yes, you got to tap out every now and then. And you've got to realign yourself, and you've got to affirm who you are and who you want to be. And that will drive you. That will drive you once you know, this is me, this is what I can do, this is my abilities, I believe in who I am. Because a lot of times you may be the only one who believes that you can actually attain what you're thinking about. So I believe in what I can do. And then you go forward.
Yes. Let's say I'm a teacher, a parent, or a coach of a Gen Z is listening to this podcast right now. What would you say to them who is working with this demographic in whatever capacity?
I would say a lot of times, and I can say that I experienced this as well, because my parents had me much older. My mom was like 41 when she had me, right? So you think huge generation gap right there. But one of the things I can say that my mom had always done is that whatever I found interested in, even though it didn't always look the way she wanted to look, she supported it. It's not always going to make sense, especially to these parents. It's not always going to make sense to you, right? Because you got to think they're growing up in a different time, different space. They have different resources, different access, different opportunities. So a lot of things that they create and they develop are things that we don't see any picture of right now. It's not something that's happening at the moment. And then all of a sudden they create it. So what they find desire in, what they find interested in, fuel it, support them. Give them advice, definitely give them advice, guide them, but fuel their interest. Don't cut them down because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't look the way you feel like it should look. Because a lot of careers, a lot of jobs, a lot of things that, a lot of ways in which Gen Zers are making money, those opportunities were not there when I was growing up. So they've got to think out of the box. They have to be innovative. So allow them to be in that space to be innovative.
Allow them to be in that space to be innovative. I've heard that Gen Z is the most innovative, entrepreneurial generation in a long time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Man, so many good pieces of advice and nuggets of wisdom from you, Yasmeen. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
So fun, truly. If people want to connect with you and ask you questions, where should they connect with you? On LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm definitely on LinkedIn, Yasmeen Robbins. I'm also on Twitter, Robbins Educates. So you can find me there. They're welcome to send me a DM or a message, and I definitely will get back to you.
Awesome. I'll link that down below for anyone that's interested. And if you are interested in subscribing to the podcast, hit the subscribe button.
Absolutely.
So that you more amazing episodes to come, and follow us on Instagram also at Greater East NC, and you'll see me there for future upcoming young adult programs. And thank you so much again, Yasmeen. It was really a pleasure.
Same here.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.